Chapter 23. Wednesday kept me busy with wedding preparations. Decorations, the question between band and DJ, tables, chairs, it seemed to never end. I was lost and endlessly thankful that Mom and Brittany knew what they were doing. After lunch, I plead exhaustion and went home to take a nap. Before I made it to bed, though, Bill called. As I answered, I silently gave thanks that it was someone who would have more to talk about than the wedding. I picked up the call. Hello. Nicki, I'm not interrupting anything, am I? His familiar voice came over the line. No, I was just getting ready to go lay down for a while. Good, get all the rest you can. I'm trying though, I admit, it's handy sometimes when I want to get out of something. He chuckled on the other end of the call. I have a question for you. All right. Are you bored out of your mind yet? Ready to get started at the shop? It's not that I'm bored really, just out of my element. I have all this time on my hands and I should be helping Mom, Brittany and Amber with the wedding, but I feel like I'm just getting in the way. You're not in the way, it's your wedding. You should have what you want. Mom's been careful to make sure I have the input I want. She and Brittany are doing great without me. Even at keeping Amber under control, I feel like I'm just making it harder for them. Are you ready for something else to think about, other than investigation that has taken over your second bedroom? I jumped at the idea. Of course. What do you have? I have another non-shifter. This one runs a second-hand store on the other side of the state. So, I'll use my position at the shop to contact them. Exactly. When do you want me to start? I thought you were scheduled to start at the shop on Monday. Oh. I was disappointed. I kinda liked the time to myself, but I was ready for something that didn't leave me feeling quite so out of my element. But I have several books you'll want to read first, to learn a little about what to look for, how to gauge age and authenticity. Oh, that sounds great. Finally, something to do that wasn't wedding planning. I'll send them to you and you can get started today if you like. That sounds good. I'll get started this afternoon. How are you getting along with Gavin? He asked. Good, I was fully aware that Gavin was just a room away and could likely hear me, if not Bill. He's easy to be around, I'm comfortable with him. It's almost like he's another of my brothers, only he doesn't torment me. That's good to hear, he's a good man. I'm glad you're comfortable with him around. I didn't really know what to say. I glanced around the room, it could lay on the bed reading instead of napping, it would be just as restful, and I would feel less guilty doing research for my new job. If you'll send me those books, I'll get started. Then I can start looking for a reason to contact the new non-shifter on Monday. All right. You should have them in a few minutes. We rang off and I shoved my PCD into my jeans pocket before heading into the kitchen for a glass of tea. Is everything all right? Gavin asked from the table where he had been playing a game on his PCD. I thought you were going to take a nap. Fine. That was Bill. He has some books for me to read and since I start at the shop next week. He's found another non-shifter. I'm waiting for the books, and then I'll lie on the bed and read instead. It's still resting, but it's productive resting. I pulled a glass from the cabinet. I need something to drink if I'm not napping. My pocket chirped, telling me I had a message. That's probably the books. I finished filling my glass and carried it into the bedroom. Lying on the bed, I pulled out my PCD, pulled up the first book and started reading. I don't know how long I'd been reading when I heard Devon's pickup pull into the yard. Laying my PCD aside, I went to see him. I made it to the living room before I heard him at the back door. I spun on my heel and headed through the kitchen to that door. I found him in the laundry room, peeling out of wet, muddy clothes. What happened? I took in the mud covering every inch of him. It was in his hair and all over his face. I had a bit of a run-in with the bull. Did he knock you down? No, I got too close and he charged. I tried to run, but it was too muddy. I fell face first in the mud. It only got worse as I tried to get up. He grinned up at me, his teeth shining white through all the grime. I tried to contain my laughter. Go ahead, laugh. It was funny. By the time I was out of the mud, your dad couldn't stand up, he was laughing so hard. He pushed his mud-crusted jeans into a pile on the floor. I'm not sure if we should toss it all in the washer or take it outside and hose off the worst of it first. He bent down and pulled his electronics out of the pockets, dropping them on top of the dryer before standing up, wearing only his boxer briefs. I was going to hug and kiss you, but you're filthy. I wrinkled my nose. I'll wait till you get out of the shower. Fickle woman. He stepped past me and headed for the bathroom. Oh, Caden and Terry will be by this evening to report what happened with their interviews this morning. He said over his shoulder as he closed the door. Then I heard the water running in the shower. I went back to the kitchen where Gavin was sitting at the table. He'd gone back to playing his game after watching the nearly naked, mud-covered Devon walk through the room in silence. I'm sure you heard, Caden and Terry are coming by this evening. Do you want to hang around? I'd like to stay, but it's up to Devon. I nodded and went back to the bedroom, wanting to be there when Devon got out of the shower. I'd developed a love of lying across the bed and watching him come out of the bathroom all wet and dripping. Devon listened to Gavin's report, not that anything had happened, but Gavin always gave a report at the end of his shift before going home. Devon said there was no need for him to stay any longer, to go enjoy the evening. Later, after Caden and Terry arrived, the four of us sat in the living room. Devon and I sat beside each other on one couch, while Caden and Terry were on opposite ends of the other. What did you find out? Devon asked. We talked to Anderson. He says that he initiated the breakup with Annie, but it was amicable. He had no hard feelings towards her, Caden said. Devon took a deep breath and let it out slowly, thinking. His alibi? He said he was in bed asleep, alone. Terry shook his head. His answers seem right on the surface. They should take him off the suspect list, but something is off. I can't give you a more specific reason not to believe him, but it feels off. What do you recommend? I knew that Devon valued that these men had been on the job longer than he had, that they had more experience with the pack and how to deal with them. He'd been avoiding anything Kitsune for 10 years and had only been back in the midst of it for a few months. I would call him in. Have him talk to you or Bill, maybe both at the same time. Intimidate him a little. You can use your talents and see what you think of his story. I'll see about that. Who else did you talk to? Jessup was working. We couldn't question him today. We'll try again tomorrow, Terry said. But we did catch Garza. What did you learn from Garza? Oh, Garza was very helpful. Caden's words were serious, but his tone said that wasn't what he meant. Terry rolled his eyes. I'm sure he had a part in the Beigler girl's murder. He didn't even try to hide his hostility towards her or the human she was dating. It was almost like he was daring us to accuse him of killing her. He was definitely part of it. Caden confirmed. I think with a little persuasion, he might give up his accomplices. It's almost as though he wants to be caught, like he wants to rub our faces in what he's done and dare us to stop him. We'll stop him, but not until we're sure we have everyone involved, Devon said. So you're sure that you have at least one of the killers, suspect another, and we'll talk to the third tomorrow, right? That's it in a nutshell, Caden agreed. Devon was silent for several minutes. Caden and Terry sat, waiting for directions. After what seemed like ages, Devon spoke. Very well, let me know what you find out tomorrow, and I'll decide from there where to go next. The men stood, said their goodbyes, and left. How was your day? Devon kissed the top of my head. Good. Long. Frustrating. Frustrating? I'm just having a hard time with wedding planning. It's not my strong point. Is Mom giving you a hard time? No, it's just all the details, small crap that doesn't matter to me, but Mom, Brittany, and your mom all insist that they're extremely important. I just want it over with. I want to stand with you in front of the judge and say I do, and get on with our lives. Devon chuckled. What? Your approach is pretty close to mine, except that I want you to have what you want, whatever that is. You have to admit, you do have some specific things you want. You want your family there. You want it small and intimate. He wrapped his arms around me. I turned in the seat until my back was against his chest, his scent surrounding me. I do have some things I want, I just never foresaw this many details. I'm ready to go back to work, just to get away from it all. Is that the only reason you want to go back to work? I felt his breath whisper against my cheek as he spoke. No, I'm bored here. There's nothing to do but lie around and read or sleep, and I can only sleep so much. I leaned against him, enjoying his arms around me. I could eat, but if I did that, I'd be as big as a house before the baby gets here and afterward too. Have you talked to Bill about being ready to start at the new job? He called today. He has another non-shifter for me. This one I'll use the new position to contact. So when do you start? Monday, but he sent me some books this afternoon so I could start learning about antiques. What to look for, clues that items could be fake, that kind of thing. That's good. Did he say anything else? I thought for a second. No, just asked how I was and told me about the new non-shifter and work. All right. His voice was distant, like he was lost in thought. I wondered for a moment if he was worried that Bill was unhappy with his work, his management of the enforcers, and the investigation into Annie's murder. What are you thinking about? I asked, hoping I could distract him even if I couldn't set his mind at ease. Nothing, everything. Well, is it nothing or everything? I teased. Both. I've got a little bit of everything running through my mind, but nothing particularly specific. I'm just letting thoughts run, seeing one thought flow into another, and where that leads me. Sometimes letting my mind wander helps me work through things I know are there but I just can't find. I know what you mean. That's how I realized what Annie and I have in common. He shook his head as though clearing it and bent to speak in my ear. What do you want to do tonight? Be with you. I don't care if we go out or stay home, if we're in a crowd or all alone. I just want to be with you. I have an idea or two. He stood and pulled me with him. Come on. I followed, curious what he was up to. He led me through the bedroom and into the attached bathroom. He started water running in the tub, adjusting the temperature until it was just right, then turned back to me while it filled. He came close, sliding his hands under the hem of my shirt, smoothing them over the growing mound of my belly. First, we're going to have a bath and I'm going to wash every inch of you. Then I'm going to lay you on the bed and give you a rub down like you give me, without the deep tissue part. I'm going to rub every inch of you from your toes to your scalp. He lifted my shirt over my head. I lifted my arms and let him pull it free. He slid the loose fabric of my sweatpants off my hips, letting them fall around my ankles. Maybe when I'm through with that, I'll tie your hands and have my way with you. He pushed my panties down until they fell on top of the pants. I groaned, stepping out of the middle of the pile of fabric and closer to the tub. He unhooked my bra and let it slide down my arms to land on the floor. I turned and looked at him. Am I the only one getting in? No, I'll get in with you. Why? Because I'm naked and you're still dressed. I was just taking care of you first, besides, now I get to look at you while I get ready. He reached behind his head and pulled the t-shirt off before stepping out of his jeans and underwear in one slick move. Naked, he turned off the water before climbing into the tub and extending one hand. "Come on, baby." He used my hand in his to make sure I didn't slip as I stepped in to join him, then he sat and guided me down in front of him. There was plenty of room for both of us in the large tub, though I wasn't sure how long that would be true. I leaned back against him, enjoying the weightless sensation of the water and the comfort of his nearness. After helping me bathe and washing my hair for me, Devon helped me out of the tub. He pulled a pair of towels off the rack, securing one around his hips before using the other to blot every drop of water from my skin. He carefully dried my hair before picking up my brush and starting to work the tangles out of the curls that hung past my shoulders. "I can do that." "I know you can, you do it every day, but I'm doing it now." His voice was patient as he slowly worked his way down the long auburn tresses. He teased the knots out carefully, as if there was nothing he'd rather be doing. When he had my hair smooth from top to bottom, he led me into the bedroom. "On the bed, on your stomach." He quickly dried off and tossed the towel aside, then dug through his drawer for a pair of underwear. "You don't need those for me." "I need them for me." He shot me a grin. To slow me down, remind me what I should be doing. Picking up the bottle of baby oil I use when I massage him, he popped the top open. "How much of this do I use?" "Start with a spot about the size of a nickel. If you need more, you can get it." I laid my head on the pillow and waited, knowing that he would be there soon. I heard the bottle top snap shut and the soft shick of his hands rubbing together. Then I felt them, strong and firm as he took one foot between them, slowly working each muscle from toe to heel, then sliding up over my ankle to my calf, then moved to the other foot. He worked his way up my legs, over my butt and back, and kneaded away all the tension in my shoulders and neck before he stopped. "Roll over." He pulled at my shoulder, his voice deep, husky. I rolled onto my back and looked up at him through lowered lashes. He'd moved to stand at the foot of the bed, all corded muscle and tan skin. A long scar ran the length of his right leg from the surgeries the military had done trying to repair the damage he'd sustained in his fall. I let my gaze lift, taking in all of him, the wiry slimness of his muscles, the hard length of him filling out the underwear he'd put on, and peeking out the top, begging for attention, the heat in his eyes. As I watched, he picked up the bottle of baby oil and added some to one cupped palm before setting the bottle aside again. He rubbed his hands together a moment before reaching once more for my legs. His hands skimmed my skin, working the slick moisture into my skin as he worked his way up my legs. He paused, kissing the small swell of my growing belly before continuing up my body. He kneaded and rubbed it into my breasts, not giving the puckered tips any more attention than the rest of my body, but by the time he reached my shoulders and started to move down my arms, I was beyond restless. I couldn't lie still any longer. I tried to wrap my arms around him, pull him closer, to feel the press of his skin against mine, but he pulled away. "I'm in control here." He grinned down at me. "Please." I couldn't say more. I couldn't think. My body was on fire and every touch sent me closer, but not over the edge. "Nope, you get what I say you can have." He pinned my wrists together and held them over my head, lowering himself to look me in the eye. "I want to tie you, are you okay with that?" "I don't care, just let me come." He chuckled deep in his throat. Eventually. He climbed off the bed only long enough to grab a couple of the bandanas off the dresser, the ones I sometimes wore in my hair. "These will do." One by one he folded them diagonally and spun them until they became long tubes, then used one to tie my wrists together. I pulled, not because it was too tight or I wanted to be free, but because of that instinctual testing of bonds. It was tight, but not enough to hurt, just enough to keep my hands together. I knew I had the strength to rip the thin cloth to shreds if I wanted, but this was a game and that would have ruined it. Devon lifted my arms over my head and used the second bandana to secure them to the headboard. I turned my head back to watch as he tied the knot, leaving me at his mercy. There, he secured the last knot. Now you're mine. He let his hand skim down my arms as he moved lower over my body. Lowering his face to mine, he gave me a soft kiss, teasing and gentle before pulling away. Now I get to do whatever I want, and you can't stop me. I moaned, knowing he was going to tease me but not let me peek. He lowered his mouth to one aching breast, taking the tip into the heat of his mouth and swirling his tongue around the sensitive peak. His hand closed around the other breast, kneading the tender flesh with care. He knew that my breasts were very tender, and he was trying not to hurt me. A storm of sensations rushed through my body. I knew in that instant that if I weren't so sore, and he could use a heavier touch without hurting me, he could drive me to orgasm by touching nothing more than my breasts. I twisted against him, wanting more but knowing he wasn't ready to give it, not yet. Devon, please. He gave me a small, knowing smile. Not yet. Please. I wasn't above pleading. Trust me. He placed a soft kiss on my shoulder. It will be worth it. He kissed and teased his way down my body, a touch here, a caress there, until I couldn't think. I could barely breathe. Then he moved over me, his face filling my vision. Are you ready? His voice barely a whisper. I couldn't think enough to form words. I nodded, gasping. He reached over my head and pulled on one of the bandanas, freeing my hands as he pushed inside me. Now. I came apart around him. My world narrowed until there was nothing but him moving against me, his body filling mine. I couldn't stop the scream that fought its way from my throat as another wave of pleasure washed over me, and the world went black.